Think about an animal, any animal, a bird building a nest, a spider spinning a web, a beaver building a dam. They're all doing incredibly complex things. They're architects, they're engineers. But who taught them? The answer for most of them is nobody. It's just in them, it's instinct. The blueprint for the nest or the web is written in their DNA. A spider raised in a box who has never seen another spider will spin a perfect web on its first try. It doesn't need a teacher. It doesn't need to watch a YouTube video. The knowledge is ancient, passed down through genes, not lessons. For a very long time, this was the only way skills moved through time, from parent to offspring sealed inside the code of life. It's a reliable system. It's sturdy, but it's also slow. For a species to learn a new skill, a random genetic mutation has to occur. That mutation has to be useful. And then the animal with that mutation has to survive and have lots of babies. The process can take thousands, even millions of years. For most of Earth's history, this was the only game in town. But then something new started to happen. It was a quiet revolution. An individual animal figured something out. A trick, a shortcut. Maybe a chimp found a new way to get termites out of a mound. Maybe a dolphin figured out how to use a sponge to protect its nose while looking for food on the seafloor. This wasn't a genetic mutation, it was a thought, an idea, an innovation. The big question is, what happened next? Did that idea die with the inventor, or did someone else see it? Did a younger chimp watch the expert termite fisher and think, hey, I can do that? And did it pick up a stick and try to copy the master, and did it, after a few clumsy attempts, get it right? If it did, then everything changed. The slow, grinding pace of genetic evolution suddenly got a partner. A faster, more nimble partner. Learning, teaching, the passing on of knowledge not through blood, but through observation. This is culture, and it's not just a human thing. Did they teach each other new skills? Yes. And that simple fact might be one of the most important turning points in the history of life on this planet. It fundamentally altered how creatures could adapt to their world. It laid the groundwork for the world we live in today. The story isn't just about us, though. It starts with them. The other animals who first broke the mold. Look at chimpanzees. They are our closest living relatives, and you can see the echoes of our own past in their behavior. Different groups of chimps have different toolkits. In one part of Africa, chimps use stones as a hammer and an anvil to crack open tough nuts. It's a complex, two-handed operation that takes years for a young chimp to master. They watch their mothers hour after hour. They pick up the tools, they fumble. They hit their fingers, but they keep trying. Their mothers are patient. They might not give formal lessons, but they tolerate the youngsters, leaving nuts and stones around for them to practice with. The skill is passed down from mother to child, a cultural tradition that exists in this one community, but not in others. Go to another forest, and you'll find chimps who have no idea how to crack nuts. They have the same nuts, they have the same stones, but they don't have the knowledge. Instead, they might be experts at something else. They might use carefully selected twigs to fish for termites. They strip the leaves, insert the twig into a termite mound, and pull out a protein-rich snack. A young chimp in this group will learn to termite fish, not crack nuts. It's a local tradition, a piece of chimp culture. This isn't instinct. If it were, all chimps would do it. It's a learned behavior. It's a skill taught, or at least learned through intense observation from one generation to the next. This is the beginning. It's the first step away from the tyranny of the genes. It shows that a group can develop a body of knowledge that helps it survive, and it can pass that knowledge on. It's not just primates. Think about orcas, the killer whales. They are incredibly intelligent, social creatures, and they have culture. Different pods of orcas specialize in hunting different prey. Some pods are seal specialists. They've developed a terrifying technique where they create a wave to wash a seal off an ice floe. It requires teamwork, timing, and communication. It's a complex strategy. Young orcas watch their elders for years, learning their role in this coordinated hunt. They don't just know how to do it by instinct. They learn the family business. Other orcapods in the same ocean ignore seals completely. They are fish eaters. They have their own set of tricks for herding salmon or tuna. Some have even learned to steal fish from human fishing lines. And this behavior spreads. One orca figures it out, and soon others in the pod are copying the move. It's a trend, it's a new skill being taught and learned. There was a famous case of a captive orca who was taught to wave its fin at the crowd. When it was released back to its pod, what happened? Soon, other wild orcas in the pod started waving. It served no purpose. It was just a weird behavior that was copied. It was a meme, spreading through a population of whales. This tells us something crucial. The ability to learn from others isn't just for life or death skills. It's a fundamental social mechanism. It's about fitting in, about being part of the group. And once that mechanism is in place, it can be used to transmit anything: hunting techniques, communication calls, or even useless but interesting behaviors. Even birds do it. Many songbirds have regional dialects. A sparrow in one valley might sing a slightly different tune than a sparrow in the next valley. A young bird doesn't hatch knowing the local song. It listens to its father and the other males around it. It babbles, it practices, it fine-tunes its song to match the local dialect. The song is a cultural marker. It says, "I'm from around here," and the skill of singing that specific song is taught, generation after generation. So, the answer is yes. Other animals teach each other, but there's a limit. A chimp can teach another chimp how to use a stone, but it can't teach it how to make a better stone. The nut cracking technique in a chimp community will likely be the same for 1,000 years. The knowledge is passed on, but it doesn't seem to improve. There's no progress. Each generation learns the same set of skills their parents had. It's a static culture. And that's where the human story begins. That's where we took this basic ability to learn from others and turned it into a runaway engine of change. Our ancestors started in the same place as the chimps. They learned to find food, to stay safe, to use simple tools. But at some point they added a new trick. They didn't just copy, they improved. Imagine an early hominin maybe 2.5 million years ago. Let's call her Lucy's granddaughter. She watches her mother use a sharp-edged rock to scrape meat off a bone. It's a useful skill. She learns to do it too. She finds a rock that's already broken and uses it. That's simple imitation. That's what a chimp does. But one day, she needs a sharp rock and can't find one. She has an idea. What if she made one? She picks up 2 rocks and smacks them together. One of them flakes, leaving a sharp edge. It's a breakthrough. It's not a very good tool. It's what we now call an Oldowan chopper. It's crude, but it works, and it's a revolutionary leap. She hasn't just found a tool, she has manufactured one. Now comes the crucial part. Does she keep this secret to herself? No. Her child watches her. Other members of her group watch her. They see the process. They see her deliberately striking one stone with another to create an edge. They copy it. And now, the whole group doesn't have to rely on finding sharp rocks anymore. They can make them. A new skill has been invented, taught, and has spread. The group is now more effective. They can butcher carcasses more quickly, getting more food, and reducing their exposure to predators. This is the first flicker of the fire that would eventually consume the world. It's a simple process. Someone has an idea, others copy it. The group benefits. But the human line added the next all-important step. A few 100,000 years later, the descendants of that group aren't just making simple choppers. They're making Acheulean hand axes. These are not just broken rocks. These are beautiful, symmetrical, teardrop-shaped tools. They are worked on both sides. They require dozens, maybe hundreds of precise strikes. You can't make one by accident. It takes planning, foresight, and a clear mental image of the final product. And it takes a good teacher. A youngster couldn't just figure this out on their own. The process is too complex. They had to watch an expert. The expert had to be willing to be watched. Maybe they even offered some guidance, a gesture, a grunt, a tap on the hand to show the right angle to strike the stone. We don't know for sure. There are no recordings. But the complexity of the tool implies a more complex system of teaching. This is what's called the ratchet effect, culture that doesn't just get passed on but gets better. Each generation adds a small improvement, a new tweak. One generation learns to make a hand axe. The next generation, someone figures out a slightly better way to thin the edge. That innovation is then taught to the next generation, who now starts from a higher baseline. They don't have to reinvent the hand axe, they just have to learn the best version currently available, and maybe, just maybe, one of them will add their own small improvement. The skills weren't just about tools, they were about everything. How to hunt, where to find water, which plants are poison and which are medicine. This was a library of knowledge held in the collective mind of the group. An older individual wasn't just old, they were a database. They had seen droughts. They had seen floods, they knew the migration patterns of the animals, they remembered where that hidden patch of berries was. Their knowledge, taught to the younger generation, was the difference between life and death. Teaching became the most important survival skill of all. A group that was good at passing on knowledge would outcompete a group that wasn't. This created evolutionary pressure. It wasn't just about being strong or fast anymore. It was about being smart and being a good communicator. It was about being a good teacher and a good student. This feedback loop between culture and genes is probably what drove the massive expansion of the human brain. Making and using complex tools, planning a hunt, navigating a large territory, all of these things require significant brain power. And teaching them to someone else requires even more. You need what's called a theory of mind. You have to understand that the person you're teaching doesn't know what you know. You have to be able to see the world from their perspective, to figure out what they're doing wrong and how to correct them. This social intelligence became paramount. The individuals who were better at it, better at learning, teaching, and cooperating, were more successful. They had more children who survived, and they passed on the genes for the kind of brain that is good at those things. Our culture was shaping our very biology. We weren't just evolving to fit our environment. We were evolving to be better at creating and transmitting culture. Our brains grew bigger to hold more information and to manage the complex social relationships that teaching requires. And then came the ultimate tool for teaching, the one that changed the game forever: language. We don't know exactly when complex language appeared, but when it did, the speed of cultural evolution exploded. Before language, teaching was limited to showing. You could demonstrate how to nap a flint, but you couldn't explain why you had to hit it at a certain angle. You could lead someone to water, but you couldn't tell them, "There's a spring on the other side of that mountain, but be careful. Lions often hunt there in the evening." Language untethered teaching from the here and now. You could talk about the past. "Remember that time we tried to hunt the big mammoth and it charged? We should try a different strategy this time." You could talk about the future. "When the rains come, we will move the camp to the high ground." You could talk about things that were completely abstract. You could tell stories. Stories are one of a human's most powerful teaching tools. A story can contain vast amounts of information in a memorable package. A story about the clever coyote who tricked the angry bear is not just entertainment. It's a lesson about cunning over strength. A story about the creation of the world is a lesson about who we are and where we come from. It teaches social rules, morality, and a shared sense of identity. It binds the group together. With language, you could teach someone not just a skill, but the entire context around that skill. You could explain the properties of different types of wood for making spears. You could discuss the best strategy for a cooperative hunt before you even left the camp. Knowledge could be pooled. One person might be an expert on plants, another might be a master toolmaker. A third might be an expert tracker. With language, they could share their expertise. The whole group now had access to the specialized knowledge of its members. The group became a superorganism, a collective intelligence. This is what truly set our ancestors apart. A chimp group is a collection of individuals. A human group was a network. The skills and knowledge weren't just in individual heads, they were in the connections between them. And this network could grow over time. The invention of writing was just the next logical step, a way to store knowledge outside of a living brain, making it even more durable and accessible. The skills being taught became more and more complex. It wasn't just how to make a spear. It was how to build a shelter, how to manage a fire, how to navigate by the stars, how to create art, how to perform a ritual. Every aspect of human life was built on a foundation of taught and learned skills. Think about the physical changes this drove. Our childhoods became incredibly long. A human child is helpless for years, far longer than any other primate. This seems like a huge evolutionary disadvantage. They're slow, vulnerable, and a massive drain on their parents' resources. But it makes perfect sense when you realize that their main job for that first decade or two isn't just to grow, it's to learn. The human brain is so large and needs to absorb so much cultural information that it requires a long apprenticeship. Childhood is the time when skills are downloaded from the previous generation. Our bodies also changed. We lost our raw physical power. We are not as strong as a chimp or a gorilla. We don't have big canine teeth for fighting. Our evolutionary strategy wasn't based on individual might. It was based on cooperation and technology. A well-made spear used with a coordinated group plan is far more effective than brute strength. And those skills, making the spear and forming the plan, have to be taught. We traded muscle for a brain that could learn and a social structure that could teach. So, when we look back at the grand sweep of evolution, the simple act of one individual showing another how to do something was not a minor detail. It was the catalyst. It created a second inheritance system, one that ran parallel to the genetic system, but operated thousands of times faster. An animal's genes might adapt over a million years. A human group could learn to survive in the Arctic in just a few generations, developing the skills to make warm clothing, build igloos, and hunt seals on the ice. This knowledge wasn't in their DNA, it was in their culture, taught around the fire from one person to another. This ability to teach each other skills is what allowed us to spread across the entire planet. We are not biologically adapted to live in the desert or the jungle or the tundra. We are a tropical African ape, but we could go to those places and survive because we could invent and teach the necessary skills. We invented culture as our primary survival strategy, and it's a process that continues today. Everything, someone taught you how to read, how to tie your shoes, how to cook a meal, how to use a computer. You are the current endpoint of an unbroken chain of teaching that stretches back millions of years, back to a hominin smacking two rocks together. Each generation learned from the last and added something new. The skills got more complex, the knowledge more vast. So, did they teach each other new skills? Yes. They taught each other how to survive. They taught each other how to thrive. And in doing so, they taught themselves how to become human. The classroom, in whatever form it took, a mother showing her child how to crack a nut, a hunter demonstrating how to track an animal, an elder telling a story around a fire, is the most important invention in our history. It's the crucible where our species was forged. Without teaching, we would still be just another clever ape. With it, we became the creatures who could look back and ask the question in the first place.